I told you that battery sounded flat.
What's the first most frequent question that I get asked? How good are my batteries and how long are they going to last? In this video I'm going to show you exactly what I do when someone asks me to check their batteries. So this is Peter's catamaran, White Cat, and we are going to do a full battery test for him. And the second most frequent thing people say to me? I need lithium.
You need lithium.
You need lithium.
I need
Lithium.
Whoa, hold it. You don't need lithium. I would say 75, maybe 80% of the people that I meet don't need lithium. They've got lead acid batteries, which are either lead acid, liquid or gel, or AGMs. And provided that those batteries are connected the right way and maintained, they're perfectly alright. There are some people and some circumstances where lithium is a better buy, but not for everyone. Before I show you how we do the testing and checks, let's look at some basic lead acid technology. Remember, if you know how it works, you know how to fix it. Lead acid batteries fall into three basic categories: the wet cell, where the acid is a liquid, gel batteries, where the acid is a gel, and AGM, absorbent glass mat, where the acid is contained within a glass mat, something similar to fiberglass that you see on a boat. Now remember that these are three distinct different types. A lot of people get confused between gel and AGM. They are completely different types of battery. But remember, these are all the same class lead acid batteries. This is a typical lead acid wet cell battery. It has terminals, lead plates, an electrolyte, which is acid, a liquid acid. Some of you might remember this little ditty. Poor little Johnny Brown, he will not live no more, for what he thought was H2O was H2SO4. So the sulfuric acid is not concentrated, but it is pretty dangerous stuff. Not only can it burn you and other things, but when charging and discharging, batteries give off gases, and these gases can be harmful. Gel batteries use exactly the same basic construction, except for the acid is contained within a gel, which means it's non-spillable, slightly less dangerous. These batteries are often sold as maintenance-free or sealed for life. AGM batteries use exactly the same chemical technology. They're acid. Apart from, the acid is contained within an absorbent glass mat, hence AGMs, and again, these are often sold as sealed for life or maintenance-free. It's important to remember that batteries are actually a chemical reaction. In this diagram, connecting the two electrodes and closing the circuit causes a chemical reaction which results in the lead sulfate being deposited onto each of the electrode or plates and water being released into the electrolyte solution. The reaction can be broken down into three parts: the reaction at the anode, the negative plate, the reaction at the cathode, the positive plate, and the overall reaction. The overall reaction, you generate electricity. Wet cells, gel batteries, and AGM batteries all work in exactly the same way. It's just their electrolyte is suspended in a different way. Now, because the electrolyte is suspended within the battery in a different way, gel, AGM and wet cell or flooded batteries have different characteristics. I'm not going to go into all that now, maybe that's something for another video, but they're all slightly different in the way they react. And this reaction can be anticipated and calculated, and that's why different batteries have different duty cycles and different charge rates. Different densities in the plates can give different characteristics, such as a start battery or domestic battery. Some AGM batteries can do both equally well. Before we do the test, I thought I'd run through a few things for you. The first thing is we have 3 domestic batteries to test, and then being a catamaran we have 2 starter batteries to test, and we testing them for different things. What I'll do, I'll just show you now some of the equipment that we're going to be using, and then as we use it I'll go through its use and what it's telling us. So we have one of these. This is a drop tester. You don't drop it and see how far it is. It basically tells you how many cranking amps a starter battery has when it's under full load. There's a big resistor in there. It's a bit old school. It's the way we used to do it years ago. I still like to do this because it's, you know, it's a no-nonsense tester. There's a big load on there like your starter motor, and it sorts the men from the mice. So that's why I like to use that. This is a battery analyzer tester. This is a computer. This does all the maths inside its little brain that we used to have to do with a pirate pencil and a book. We used to do all the maths, work out all the resistances, etc, etc, with a pencil and a book. I still bring a pencil and book with me though. So this is a laser thermometer, just so that we can check that the batteries are a good temperature to test. You want to be around about, you know, 20-25 degrees max, because that's what they're measured at when they come out the factory, at roughly 20 degrees. And a good old-fashioned multimeter. This one's a clamp meter. We can measure amps in cables with that, but this one is calibrated, and so I like to keep that there as a test piece so that I can check all the voltages and resistances as well, so against something that's known. Right, let's go and start the test. Well, here I am down on the port side aft cabin in the battery box, and the battery box here is so big underneath this huge double bed that I can actually get in the box. Now, you can't see an awful lot from there. I can see a lot more. So what I'm going to do is I'll talk you through it, and then when we get to bits where we need some detail, I'll show you on the GoPro, and we'll cut to those bits. So the first thing that I've done, and I did this off camera, was I numbered all of the batteries. So there are 3 230 amp hour AGMs in here, and I have numbered them with my little letter set. I'll show you a picture of that. Here's the numbering that I put on: battery 1, battery 2, battery 3, and so they're numbered. We can identify each battery now, and that's pretty important. We need to know which battery is which, because the values that we're going to be measuring are going to differ on each battery. The next thing that we are going to need to do is to just check that the battery terminals, as they are at this moment, are all tight, which they are, and also that they've got some anti-corrosion agent on them. So they're quite goopy. Whoever did the install, it looks like they've done a pretty good job. The batteries are all strapped down. I'll show you those straps in a moment. But one thing which is immediately obvious is that all of these batteries have been set up in parallel. Now, they've been set up in parallel, which is fine, but it's the way in which they've been set up. Let me show you how that works. This is the way that White Cat's batteries for the domestic system have been wired. There are three 230 amp hour batteries at 12 volts, or 690 amp hours approximately. This equates to 8,625 watt hours. And remember, we measure battery banks in watt hours. When we put power into these batteries, i.e. charge them, or when we take power out, i.e. discharge them, notice the first battery in line is battery number 3. That is going to be taking most of the significant load on discharge, and of course when it's charging, it's going to be the first one charged up. The reason for that is that battery number 2 and battery number 1 have cables that run from battery number 3's terminals, and these cables have an internal resistance. Therefore, because of the resistance, they won't be getting the same amount of voltage or amperage when it's charging, or putting out the same amount of amperage when discharging. In effect, what happens is battery 3 provides at least 50% of the discharge power available. Battery number 2 will provide slightly less, and battery number 1 even less. So battery number 3 is having a pretty hard life. There are better ways to wire the batteries where this effect can be lessened, and all the batteries provide the same amount of current. Or the current draw can be spread over the whole bank more evenly. Let's look at that. A quick way to do this is to put the positive on one end of the battery bank and the negative on the other end. This way, the two outside batteries are taking the majority of the load on discharge, and of course when the batteries are charged up, they're taking the majority of the charge. The centre battery is doing less work. This helps, but it's not ideal. In this diagram, all three batteries have cables of equal length going to a bus bar, a positive bus bar and a negative bus bar. Keeping all of the cables the same length means that the resistance in the cables is the same. All of the batteries will then take the same amount of load on discharge and the same amount of charge when being charged. Ideally, the optimum way to wire these batteries would be to have two large bus bars, one positive and one negative. The two cables would then connect to the ends of the bus bars and go off to the load or the charging circuits. All of the resistances are kept low and they're all the same to every battery. This is the optimum way, but they're seldom wired like this in reality on most boats. So I'll use my famous pirate pencil to point things out to you. Now you can see here we have a positive, going to a positive, going to a positive on the three batteries. Oh, and here's the numbering that I put on battery 1, battery 2, battery 3, and you can see that these straps are pretty tight, but as well as the straps, down the sides of the battery on all three sides, they have these little locking tabs, hold them in position, so that's quite good. They are not going to slide around. Now obviously on a cat, the boat tends to be less inclined. It's not going to do that or that. What we have to do is to make sure that the batteries can't slide left and right, fore and aft. So left and right, fore and aft, and make sure in the case of a possible inversion that the batteries would stay put. So the straps make sure that happens, and the little locks down the side, as you can see, that one there, make sure that they can't slide. So that's fine. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is these batteries are about 180 kilos each. So there's 2.2 pounds to a kilo. Work that out, they're heavy. If they start flying around, they're going to do damage to things like the inverter here, this isolation diode, and the clarifier, which is down the back here. Not only that, but the battery would be damaged. You know, if it hits something hard like one of these surfaces, then the battery is going to be damaged and split. Now, in the case of a lead acid battery that's got liquid inside, you are then going to get acid everywhere, and battery acid in your boat is not a good thing. So with an AGM battery, there's no liquid as such inside. It's glass mat. That's what the GM stands for in AGM, and therefore if they were damaged, there's not going to be liquid acid flowing everywhere. They are virtually maintenance free. Because of that, you don't have to top the mat like you would a lead acid battery, conventional lead acid battery. And generally you can charge AGMs much faster than you can a traditional lead acid battery. They last a lot longer. 500 to 600 cycles is their lifespan, if not more. So that's 500 to 600 times you can discharge them and then recharge them fully without them deteriorating. Some will handle more than that, some will handle less. Obviously with lithium, you're in the 2000 to 5000 cycles range, so that's why lithium is much better. A lot of people get confused between AGMs and gels. Gel batteries have a viscous liquid inside them. It's more what we'd call a paste or a gel. There are some quite fundamental differences in the way that they are charged and their longevity changes. And now we start testing, but first we have to disconnect all the batteries. So we'll start with this battery here, 13mm spanner, that's 1/2 inch or so. There we go. And you just notice on this one as well, there's a terminal which has been left on there and not taken off. I think somebody's had a battery cable on there for something else and it's broken off. So there's actually the terminal crimp on there, and these have built-in fuses, look, in there. I do like those, good idea. So that's that one off, and then battery number 2, take the positive off, and the third one here, just release that. You can see the engine start battery for the port engine is in here. That's the one we'll be looking at next. So that's off and up out the way. That's it, and we're going to leave those off for a little while. What we'll do meanwhile is we'll just get our equipment set up so that in an hour's time, when these have all settled down a bit, we can just check their voltage. Okay, we're back now after an hour or so. Lovely cup of tea and a nice slice of cake, and I'm just going to measure the voltage of these batteries. Now they've been sitting at rest, and I'm using my multimeter. This one is calibrated. It's been calibrated against a known voltage, and I do that probably every 3 months or so. Not really necessary, but I do check it. I've got a couple of those, and this is the best one, or the better of the two I've got. So let's measure the voltage on there. Make sure we've got a really good contact. And that's 12.89. And this one, 12.94. And this one, 13.0607. There you go, I'll show you. There, so all slightly different voltages. They're not changing. So that's just so that we know that they're okay. We haven't got any that are down below 12.2, 12.3, which would mean that the batteries are discharged. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out our analyzer and we connect. Computer says alive, so we check the battery now. They are AGM. We're going to set the amp hours, and this battery is toast. Let's see if we can get this on the camera for you. So this battery is recommended it's replaced. It's only got 24% of its life left. The state of charge is 100% SOC. And the internal resistance is 4.4
milliohms.
So that's not good for that battery. Let's try the next one. Once again, reset that battery, enter AGM, amp hours 230, test. Oh dear. So this one is 17%. What I'll do is I'll print these out for you. I can download the data on this from a computer, but I'll print them out anyway, and I'll show you the printouts once we're done. In chronological order. So our first battery, battery number 1, state of charge was 100%, battery voltage was good, 12.86, state of health 25%. That battery is losing 75% of its capacity. They are 8 years old, so that's kind of to be expected. It was measured at 560 amps. We selected GB input, and it should be rated at 1120 amp hours. It's an AGM battery, and the internal resistance was 4.4 milliohms. Battery number 2, 100%, 12.89. Only 17%, 465 amp hours. The input was GB, rated at 1120, which same as the other one. It's an AGM battery, same as the other one. Internal resistance was 5.3 milliohms. And finally, battery number 3, 100%, 12.96 when it was measured. 30% state of health, so a little bit better, measured at 620 amps. Input again was GP, rated at 1120, same as the other one. AGM, same as the other one. Internal resistance 3.99 milliohms. So you see the battery with only 17% life left has an internal resistance of 5.3 milliohms, and the one with 30% left has 3.99 milliohms resistance. And of course the one battery number 1 is 25%, and that's 4.4 milliohms. So you see how the internal resistance of the batteries has a mathematical relationship with its capacity. And we've talked about battery, the internal resistance of batteries before, and why lithium is so good, because it has a very, very low internal resistance, a lot lower than 3.9 milliohms. So unfortunately I will write this up in a little report for Peter, and I will download the data from the battery analyzer. There is no point in me doing a voltage test for his charging circuits, because we know they're working. The batteries were charged up, and it's kind of pointless doing it on a set of batteries which are basically toast. There's probably, I don't know, 200 amp hours or so of total capacity, which is okay. You know, he might get away with it for another 6 months or so, but they do tend to go, once they get down low, they go very, very quickly, and they start to deform shape wise, or get hot. That's my multimeter turning off. Or they get hot when you charge them. So I would suggest, I'm going to strongly recommend to Peter that he replaces these. This is the type of battery report which I produce. Obviously there's 3 of these, one for each battery. I went on the next day to check the starter batteries. In the next video I'll show you the 2 other tests that we have to do, and talk you through how to test the starting battery. Obviously nobody wants to get stuck in the middle of the ocean and not be able to start their engine. Meanwhile, if anyone wants any large fishing weights, I can give you Peter's details and you can contact him. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and if you've got any comments, put them below. Sail safe.